Every 4 years, the United States of America hears the drumbeat of billions of campaign dollar attack ads, meaningless debate with empty analysis and poll after poll after poll. This can only mean one thing. It's time to pick our globalist puppet leader.
We're going to be left with a choice of a lesser of two evils. And I'm saying I don't go out with evils, I don't deal with evils, I don't do business with evils, I don't hang out with evils. Why would I vote for an evil to run my life or run my country?
Will it be globalist puppet A or puppet B?
They continue to vote for these Democrats and Republicans, the people that are wrecking our country, and yet they still vote for them.
Unlike North Korea and China, we Americans have the illusion of choice this November 6th.
I think that a lot of votes are going to be stolen.
I don't know how you could possibly have voter fraud when your son owns the voting machines.
1.4 million votes were lost, spoiled as they call them in the biz, through these so-called glitches.
The choice is not up to you. Which management team from Slavery Incorporated will run our country into oblivion for the next 4 years? Tune in to Infowars.com or PrisonPlanet.tv this Tuesday, November 6th, as another meaningless pageant is played out.
The two-party system has ruined our nation. They've kept us in a state of perpetual war, driven our jobs overseas, bankrupted us, overtaxed, and overspent us. But here's the good news. 5% of the vote in 2012 is all it takes to end the two-party system in America for good. This year, do something revolutionary. Cast a protest vote that counts. My name is Gary Johnson, and I approve this message. Live free.
And there you go. You just saw Governor Gary Johnson's, one of his latest campaign commercials. He wants to hit at least that 5% threshold. Obviously, he wants to win the election, but at the very least, he wants to really rock the system and shake up the system by getting at least 5% in the general election that's coming up next week. So we are now joined by Governor Gary Johnson, presidential candidate. He represents the Libertarian Party. Governor, thank you so much for joining us here on Infowars Nightly News.
David, it's great to be on with you. And yeah, the 5%, I mean, it has a chance to, really kick the two-party system in the rear end. The notion of matching funds, the notion of not having to qualify in states where currently so much money and time are taken up with just ballot access. Now, it's complex, but overall, a 5% strategy just is a game changer.
Now, tell us a little bit about, federal funds. I mean, how much federal funding would you be able to receive next presidential cycle, or the Libertarian Party next presidential cycle, if you hit that 5%?
Well, it would be a minimum of $5 million. And keep in mind that right now we've raised about $2 million. Excuse me. We've raised about $2 million to Obama and Romney's $2 billion. I mean, we're talking about 1/1000th of what they have raised. So if you talk about $5 million in federal matching funds, that in and of itself would be a game changer. I mean, that begets a lot more contribution, a lot more attention. And right now, 30% of Americans just know my name. They don't know who I am. They just know my name. And so, this is the bad news. The good news is that when people do understand the issues, there's a lot of support for this. And of course, we saw that with Ron Paul, and the fact that this is a message that's just too important to go unsaid.
Now, we're going to talk a little bit about issues in a second. We'll have plenty of time for that. But back to this 5%, because this is a huge moral victory if we, the people, get this. Do you think you're going to get that 5%, hit that 5% threshold?
Well, the problem is right now is that the polls don't include my name. When the polls include my name, that's kind of an education in and of itself. Gee, I heard the name Gary Johnson. Who is he? Let me check that out. Well, for the most part, more than 9 out of 10 polls do not include my name. So when it is included, it's anywhere between 3%, 6%. I realize some are lower, some are higher, but I think I hate to set an expectation here. The best a libertarian candidate has ever done running for president of the United States is right at 1% of the vote.
Now, let's say you don't hit 5%, which we're all obviously hoping that you do, but let's say you get 4%. I mean, does the Libertarian Party, are they eligible for more federal funds than they've previously received?
To my knowledge, it is this 5% that makes you a bona fide major party, as opposed to anything less. So this 5% is the threshold.
Now, one more question. From what I understand, you're going to be on the ballot in 48 states and Washington, D.C. Certainly, that's very impressive. But I assume then you were not able to get on the ballot in Oklahoma and Michigan. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'm officially a write-in candidate in Michigan, officially, and Oklahoma can bear the onus of excluding all third parties, something that I think the citizens of Oklahoma aren't as responsible for as policymakers. Vote out all the policymakers. This is something that shouldn't exist in this country. David, as governor of New Mexico, I'm not a hypocrite here. I signed a number of pieces of legislation making it easy to be on the ballot for a third party, believing that that's a good thing.
And very briefly, and then we'll move on to issues. Why were you not able to get on the ballot in Michigan and Oklahoma?
Well, Michigan, in both cases, really, politically driven. Oklahoma has the onus of you have to have 50,000 signatures. 50,000 signatures just to get on the ballot. We submitted 59,000. They refused to, they disqualified more than 9,000 signatures. Then I became the Americans elect candidate in Oklahoma. They had enough signatures to qualify Oklahoma for Americans elect. The courts threw that out. So these are Republicans and Democrats in elected positions that are bound to the Republican Party. Same thing in Michigan. Apparently we filed the paperwork 3 minutes late, although we would have maintained that we filed it on time and that we didn't even need to file it in the first place because I never asked to be on the ballot. They put me on the ballot and they required documentation to say that we wanted off the ballot when we never wanted on it in the first place.
It's amazing. They go after these, they don't go after these bankers, but they'll go after you for being allegedly 3 minutes late.
Well, that's exactly the case. And just so that there's no misconception, it's really difficult to get on the ballot in this many states. You know, there are other third-party candidates, but the Green Party comes in second place, being on the ballot in about 30 states. So trying to put this into perspective, it really is, there is only one third party, the Libertarian Party, on the ballot in effectively all the states.
Okay, well, thank you for shedding light on that. Now, let's get to the issues here. You recently filed a lawsuit against the Presidential Commission on Debates. Clearly, you weren't allowed in the debates. What happened?
Well, the Presidential Debate Commission is made up of Republicans and Democrats with absolutely no interest whatsoever in seeing a third party on stage. So that's what you've got. And There anything about including candidates. Ross Perot was the last third-party candidate that appeared in a debate. I think if I would have gotten to appear in any of these debates, that I would be the next president of the United States, given just a lack of coming up with the solutions that we do face in this country surrounding the issues that we face.
But what did they say? I mean, from what I understand, your vice presidential candidate, Judge Gray, was going to, you know, bring up the lawsuit. He was going to defend his case. I mean, did they ever give you a ruling? What did they say?
Well, they said that it didn't. It did not warrant an emergency. So both these suits are alive. It's just that they weren't heard in a timely enough way to include us in the debates. They will be heard at a later time, and we still think that we will prevail in these debates because I think we have some terrific arguments to basically suggest that, you know, in a head-to-head poll against Obama, I poll way ahead of the 15% criteria or threshold that they set.
So the matter will be heard, and maybe it affects, you know, what occurs the next presidential cycle. Is that right?
Exactly. And there could be, like I say, we'll see how this plays out, but it's alive and well, and we're kicking and screaming, and rightfully so.
Now, Governor, what were your thoughts on the presidential debates? What both candidates had to say?
Well, just much to do about nothing. I mean, when you've got the two of them arguing over who's going to spend more money on Medicare, look, we need to slash Medicare spending. We need to balance the federal budget now. Medicare is a benefit that you and I put $30,000 into, and we receive a $100,000 benefit. That is not sustainable in any way, shape, or form. We ought to have a raging debate and discussion in this country over how we provide a health care safety net for those over 65, but to continue to do what we're doing, we're going to experience a monetary collapse if we continue this unsustainable spending.
Now, let me sound like a liberal here and give you a liberal argument. What about those that say, yes, Governor, we obviously get more than what we put in, but that's because the wealthy people, offset that cost, offset the additional money we're receiving? What would you say to them?
Well, that's totally bogus. However wealthy you are, whatever you put into Medicare, you can expect 3 times the return based on what you put in, regardless of how much you put in. That's Medicare, unsustainable in any way, shape, or form. We talk about $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities moving forward. Well, that's Medicare at the top of that heap. Look, we balance the federal budget tomorrow. All that unfunded liability goes away, because basically what we would be doing today by balancing the budget is we would take away those unfunded liabilities. We would be living within our means.
So the wealthy cannot offset, that deficit.
No, it's not possible to offset that deficit, nor is it possible to offset the deficit when it comes to Medicaid, health care for the poor. And then, going back to the debates, both of Romney is saying he's going to spend more money on the military when we need to slash military spending also. And I'll start with a preface here. We need and owe ourselves an obligation to provide ourselves with a strong national defense. But defense is the operative word, not offense, not nation building. And our military interventions continue with us creating a lot more enemies to this country than we have friends.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Governor, but I heard that you were earlier this year hassled by the TSA and you filed a couple of complaints against them. Is that true?
No, that's not true, but I am hassled by TSA every day of the week, and it's the Constitution-free zone, and I hate being subject to unwarranted search and seizure. I hate it.
Okay. All right, yeah, that's kind of on the internet, in various blogs. So you were not hassled by, you were hassled, but you didn't formally file complaints against them. No. I mean, I'm hassled along with everyone else who travels. What would you do about the TSA if elected president?
Well, I would like to abolish the TSA. I think we should leave airport security to the airports, to the airlines, to states, municipalities. If I'm elected president and Congress doesn't want to abolish the TSA, I guarantee you, because I would control TSA, I would control who heads up TSA, the TSA immediately, overnight, would become less intrusive and as safe, and everybody would notice it. I mean, these are the things that you can do elected to office, controlling rules and regulations. I would de facto control rules and regulations surrounding TSA.
Now, speaking of the nanny state, every day I see stories online of cops, just being abusive towards people. We're not, I'm not trying to demonize every officer that's out there. It's not about being an officer. It's about power. Whenever people are given great power, there's always people who abuse that power. But every day I just see repeated stories about, a cop tasering a 10-year-old child or an elderly woman or things of that nature. What is your take on the growing police state and, abuse of power by the police?
Well, David, you hit it on the head. I mean, anybody in a position of power utilizes that power in ways that really infringe on other people's rights. I mean, I look at the traffic, the crossing guard that you're traveling in your car, and I just have the sense that they step out to stop me just to show me that they can stop me. And but this is power, and this is what exists in this country. And when you have a growing police state, these intrusions become just that. They become more and more intrusive. We have a growing police state in this country. Regardless of Obama or Romney getting elected, I think we're going to see a continued heightened state of a police state.
Now, how do you prevent that from happening? What will you do if you were president?
Well, now you're back to rules and regulations. And if Congress won't repeal the Patriot Act, if Congress, I would have never signed the National Defense Authorization Act. But that said, we've got TSA now moving onto the highways, moving into bus stations, train stations, just on the highway in general, making stops. Well, that can come to a stop because of a president that would control all the rules and regulations and rein back these agencies to what they were originally intended, and in TSA's case, airports.
Now, in your opinion, Governor, is this world run by a handful of powerful banks?
In my opinion, this world is run by a powerful group of, whether they're bankers, whether they're media, they are people that are in charge of what we hear and what we think and what we're able to do in ways that are completely undetected by all of us. And this is the opportunity here with this election, with the next election. Voting for me, I think, is to really just give that one the swiftest boot in the rear end that you could possibly give.
Now, Governor, obviously you were a former governor. Have you heard of the Bilderberg group? And if so, what are your thoughts on this group?
I've heard about it. I've done some Wikipedia is what I've read about it, and I don't have an opinion, yay or nay, as to their significance. But look, I was excluded from debates in the Republican primary. This was a decision that occurred in boardrooms. Who made those decisions? I can't tell you who made them, but they were made, and they were made in ways that excluded me unfairly, and nobody was able to even notice that happening. I could point to hundreds of different reasons. It would only be a guess, but this is an example of how our lives get controlled by individuals that own the world, if you will.
Okay, but you don't know what goes behind closed doors, these Bilderberg meetings.
I don't, and I know that you all offer conjecture on that, but I sure don't. Okay, and we're just going to jump around on different topics here, because this is the last time we're going to be able to talk to you before the election, and we're going to talk about mainstream issues further down in this interview. But I've never spoken to a governor about this. What's your take on Bohemian Grove? Have you heard of Bohemian Grove? Yes, I have.
What is your take on that? What goes on behind closed doors there?
Well, I actually got to visit with the family, which I think is on par with Bohemian Grove. And from what I see, it's really just it's a men's club, if you will, and they get together and talk about issues of the day, and very powerful, influential people that make up these groups, but nothing sinister, nothing at all sinister, and that's my observation.
Okay, so you haven't heard chat from other, elite politicians saying, hey, Governor, you're going to come over to Bohemian Grove with us, or you haven't, they haven't told you about anything sinister going on back there?
No, I don't have any knowledge of anything sinister.
Okay. Now, Governor, your take on the state of the U.S. economy and the world economy?
I think we're on the verge of a monetary collapse sooner than later, and it has to do with unsustainable spending. I am promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013 if elected, which would be a $1.4 trillion reduction in federal spending. I think if we don't get that under control, we can expect a monetary collapse, and very simply a monetary collapse. The dollars we have don't buy a thing because of the accompanying inflation that goes along with printing money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar we're spending.
Okay. Now, Governor, we talked about this earlier on today, earlier on in the interview. Do you believe that the system is trying to create a one-world centralized government?
I think that is a logical conclusion. The Federal Reserve, the foreign banks, the World Bank. Yes, this is the direction that we're headed. And look, I don't think that we want to be told in this country what to do, and yet we tell others what they should do, and that includes our military interventions to see vital American interests carried out. I ask the rhetorical question: what are vital American interests that require us militarily intervening, killing innocent civilians in these countries, our own men and servicewomen dying, our own men and servicewomen coming back with their limbs blown off?
Now, Governor, I want to respect your time. Do you have a couple more minutes? How many more minutes?
I've got a couple more minutes here, David. I appreciate you having me on.
Okay. Governor, your take on global warming. I've never really talked to you about global warming. Do you believe in global warming?
You know, I accept that global warming is happening. I accept that it's man-caused. That said, I'm opposed to cap and trade. I think it would be devastating to the economy. I think that the best indicator of good environment is good economy. We as consumers are demanding less carbon emission. We're getting less carbon emission. We're getting more conservation, which you and I, that's what we're all engaged in. So moving forward, look, good economy, good environment, don't enact cap and trade. It would be a whole lot of money raised with no benefit whatsoever to the environment.
Now, how is the public demanding minimal emissions? I think I heard you say just a second ago the government, the people are demanding it. How so?
Well, just the notion that we want our cars to go further. We want less carbon in the air. I mean, I think we're certainly, I think for coal to be competitive going forward, they're going to have to scrub their coal more. And that's something that the coal industry is going to have to do. But just as we have now a checkoff for alternative energies, we do have choices as consumers, and we are opting as consumers to have the cleanest energy that we can have. And of course, natural gas has become plentiful with the discovery of Marcellus. Oil in this country because of Bakken. We've got a lot more oil in the refineries than we can refine. Are we going to stop using oil because we run out of oil, or because we find an alternative to oil? Well, I'm going to argue that it will be the latter, that we'll find an alternative to oil that will stop us from using it.
Yeah, I've never really talked to you about energy. How would you address our energy dilemma?
Well, our energy dilemma, we are energy independent. North America is energy independent today. Lots being said about that will happen within the decade. I argue it's here today. We're not importing any oil from the Middle East. The oil we import from Mexico and Canada, and now less and less of that because of Bakken and North Dakota. We're in great shape from an energy standpoint, and I think that portends manufacturing jobs in the United States that don't currently exist. David, I'm also advocating eliminating income tax, eliminating corporate tax, abolishing the IRS, replacing all of it with one federal consumption tax, the fair tax. I think that's really the answer to American jobs, manufacturing jobs flocking back to the United States, tens of millions of American jobs being created here in this country as opposed to somewhere else.
So what do you attribute then the rise in gas prices to? It seems that they're constantly swinging up and down, and the average American is getting fed up with it. You heard, I think, in Newt Gingrich's campaign, he said, we can get energy down to $2.50 a gallon. If in fact everything is good and dandy, how come we see these swings in gas prices?
Well, I think today, more than anything, that has to do with just the geopolitical climate and Iran and the saber rattling over Iran and the Middle East. But looking at our own production, and I am talking about North America, Canada, Mexico, the United States, we're there.
Okay. Now, Governor, you shifted my paradigm recently in a recent interview when I asked you about illegal immigration. And obviously we support strong borders here. And, you know, we don't want people illegally diluting our culture illegally. You know, I'm Hispanic myself, so I'm obviously very sympathetic to the cause. But you told me that when you were governor of New Mexico, that the illegal immigration population really didn't cost your state that much money.
Well, the analysis that I did, David, when I was governor, is I asked everybody that interfaced with immigration, whether it be legal or illegal, and that would have been law enforcement, that would have been education, and that would have been health and human services. Hey, give me a cost benefit. How much money is coming in the door? How much money is going out the door? And the 100% consensus was more money was coming in the door than was going out. Now, if we adopt the fair tax, one federal consumption tax, taxes will not be an issue when it comes to immigration, because whether you're illegal, legal, a visitor to the United States, or a U.S. citizen, nobody is going to be able to avoid paying one federal consumption tax. And then I would also like to state, and you all living in Texas, I think you understand this, we're getting the cream of the crop when it comes to workers from Mexico. These are hardworking individuals that can't get a work visa and come into this country and work. I think that's the main reason why we have so many illegal immigrants in this country. I want to create a moving line to get a work visa. And a work visa would entail a background check because we don't want criminals working in this country. And it would entail a social security card that applicable taxes would get paid. Like I say, if we adopt the fair tax, taxes are a non-issue.
Now, Governor, and real quick, because I have to ask you this, and I only have 2 minutes left. What would you say, though, to the critics that say, well, what about our, I have to ask you 2 more questions, so it's got to be brief. What about critics who say, you know, our ER rooms are packed, you know, schools are crowded as a result of these illegals, and you're telling me, Governor, that this doesn't cost us a dime? What would you say to that?
Well, it costs us, but we're receiving more benefit than we are paying out. And I am talking about taxes that actually get paid. A lot of illegal immigrants are paying taxes by providing documentation, providing Social Security numbers that aren't accurate. Guess what? They're leaving all those taxes on the table. They're not collecting them. It's a huge factor that's really going unrecognized. So more money coming in the door than what is going out.
Now, in the last 90 seconds that we have, if you don't win this presidential election, you know, do you see yourself running in 4 years for president?
Well, you know, I think the last thing anybody wants to hear is somebody talking about running for president before this election is even over with. So that's kind of a gag. Mm-hmm. But it's important to keep this message alive. I mean, Ron Paul, who better to have been the spokesperson for the liberty movement? Well, today, maybe that's me because I'm on the ballot in 48 states. Moving forward, there has to be a voice to this movement. It's just way too important for the two parties to continue to ignore.
Sure. Would you run as I know you don't want to get ahead of yourself, but would it be as a Republican or as a Libertarian? Because obviously you faced a lot of obstacles when you ran as a Republican.
Well, if it should somehow come about, it's the liberty movement. It's liberty and it's freedom. It's personal responsibility. It's balancing the federal checkbook. It's all the issues that we face. And I don't know if that really has a party name to it as much as it does just common sense and the fact that all of us recognize that we're in deep trouble. But the two parties, heads in the sand. Look, Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, they're all coming. They're all alive and well. I don't think that's the case. I think I think these are big problems that we need to address.
30 seconds left, because I know a lot of people in the liberty movement want to know this. Why not run for U.S. Senator in the future? I mean, you can infiltrate the system from within. You can create a coalition in the Senate. Why not run for senator? I know you said you don't like doing the earmarks thing, but John McCain doesn't do earmarks, and he's been elected, you know, repeatedly.
Well, I think that at the end of the day, congressperson, senator is judged by how much bacon they bring home, and they're all about bringing home the bacon. I listen to ads here in this state for U.S. Senate, which is we need to balance the budget, but I'm going to hold Medicare intact. Well, the two don't add up, and regardless of where you're from, you got to bring home the bacon. That's how you get judged. That's how you get elected. And I think that's the root of all evil right now, are politicians that have made promises that are not sustainable in any way, shape, or form, and they have to be addressed.
Governor, 15 seconds. What would you like to say to the public?
Waste your vote on me. Everybody wastes their vote on me. I'm the next president of the United States. Nobody is going to, look, I'm going to pledge that you won't be sorry for that. And a wasted vote is voting for somebody you don't believe in. Wasted vote is voting for the lesser of two evils. Vote for the person that you most believe in. That's how you change things in this country.
Governor, thank you so much for your time, and we wish you the best of luck. Thanks, Governor. And hold on tight, because in just 1 minute, David Knight is going to have a hard-hitting interview with an individual who we will refer to as New Jersey Weed Man. He's an individual who was not charged on a marijuana account due to jury nullification. It's a very, very popular theory. So stay tuned for that.
While we fight to retain our liberty, while we fight to expose globalism, we have to realize we're talking about a very powerful combination of power.
Renowned author and expert Joel Skousen breaks down the globalist plan to shut down America and stage a new world war.
In one day, America will go from day to night. And if you haven't prepared in advance, there's not enough time to prepare in 24 hours, even if you saw it that early.
Coming to the Infowar in November is our new documentary film presentation.
Strategic relocation is a systematic way to think strategically in the future about how do I safeguard.
Joel Skousen, Strategic Relocation.
The freeways are going to be crowded, they're going to run out of gasoline, they're going to run out of food, and then they're going to start to go north and south of those freeways.
Joel Skousen is renowned as one of the world's foremost experts in strategic relocation and the securing of your home.
We talk about natural disasters, the health environment, we talk about pollution, the water quality. My personal experience about being in every one of these states.
Government is digging in for the organized, incremental collapse of society and world war.
The U.S. isn't building huge underground bases and bunkers because of some terrorist threat. They know that a massive nuclear attack is coming. They want that attack to come. Most people won't even be ready and won't be able to get out of town when any of these nuclear weapons fall, because there'll be absolute panic.
There is no preparedness without strategy.
What I tell people is that you do have time. Prepare wisely in advance.
This Christmas, give the gift of preparedness. Strategic Relocation, the film, with Joel Skousen and Alex Jones.